Hi there. I came across a very good example of how the carbon credit economy works and why it is so captive of our current situation. In an article written by a Republican, which I will link to below this video because it's very interesting to read. It combines, well, of course, new real-time information on how fucked our ecology is going to get with the temperature extremes that we're seeing. You know, it's basically summer where it should be winter, with economical considerations and basically, well, once again, a plea for rationality. But there's very good reason why there's irrationality, and that's, of course, captured in one of the quotes that he says, that he has in his article, and says here, a cap on carbon emissions designed to limit warming by 2 degrees, which is not enough by the way, but will mean sovereign states and corporations must strand 80% of their 27 trillion of proven, sorry, I can't read this morning, global reserves and related assets, a loss exceeding of $20 trillion. I really recommend looking into the article. It's very easy to read. It's very motivating to see somebody with the right mind on the right side. But of course, you know, it says $20 trillion will be stranded, will not be used, basically, will be left untouched. That's true. And that's exactly where you see how carbon credit works. It's $27 trillion. Of course it isn't. It's black rock, coal, stuff under the ground, and it's not worth anything if you leave it there. So how is it usually put to use? Well, it's put to use by giving credit to people that want to use it, that want to use it to make fertilizer, will want to use it to drive engines, to heat homes and all this stuff. All these people are giving credit by the banks because they know that with the credit they'll go to the carbon suppliers and buy the carbon, and then they'll create the wealth for themselves and they'll experience the value of that money which they, let's say, beforehand already perceived it to have, but it didn't have. It's like the money is front running the benefits that it actually creates through carbon, but the carbon side of that benefit, let's say the complete carbon dependence of that benefit, is hidden to the public, because public is led to believe that you need money. You don't need money, you need energy. You need something that can do what carbon is doing, and that can be any energy source. And as we've seen in the other video, it's like there's 900 terawatt years of carbon energy. That's totally, I believe, or 1300 or something like that. If it's only coal, it's 900. If it's gas and oil also, then you have 1325 or something like that terawatt years left in the earth altogether. But there's 21,000 terawatt years hitting the earth every year. So you basically are looking at a ridiculous scheme in order to keep people captivated by a very small resource relative to the other resources. But it's also clear that if you're talking about 27 trillion or 20 billion, sorry, it's 20 trillion dollars. That's the claim. Of course, it's unrealized. It's just like a gold mine. You know, I have a gold mine. It has gold worth of $50 trillion. So here's a shovel. It will take you, let's say, immense amounts of oil usually and coal in order to get the gold out of the gold mine, and that's about the gold price. So you're basically buying oil. If you buy gold, you buy oil. You're much better off creating an energy source, because then you don't have to buy stuff anymore, because you have your own money source, because energy creates credit. Anyway, but that 20 trillion, of course, if you divide that by the amount of Americans, then you come up with about, well, I guess, and if you, let's say, ignore a large portion of that, so you only look at 1%, which the people in control with enough aggression in order to dominate other people, or enough psychotic nature in order to make other people suffer and then blame them. You know, that's like, you know, you make a little knot out of somebody if you cause suffering and you make it so that they blame themselves. Then they're that's a self-perpetuating masochistic loop that people are then in, and they only escape it once they basically know how to put first of all, forgive themselves. That's a very important thing. So if you make a mistake or if you feel guilty, forgive yourself. That's what Jesus did with the poor people of Palestine. and that worked. But the other one is, of course, point out the real perpetrators, the real actors, the ones that bring you in this situation. And at the moment, let's say you have $20 trillion saying we want to continue this torture of the American people. And that's a lot of money. So the guy owning the coal mine can say to any marketing firm, say, okay, well, I'll tell you that every year that you keep us in business and dominating, you'll get $50 million. That's a lot of money. So you get a large piece of my pie. Basically, what I'm selling, I'm giving you a piece of the pie. Even though it's poisonous pie, and other people are going to die for it, including you, are going to suffer from it, and everything else on Earth, because we're basically moving our atmosphere out of the zone in which we developed, so that it's no longer viable for us, for anything, for plants, for animals, for anything, for the oceans. It's just no longer viable. It's like if you basically you have fish in a fish bowl and then you boil the water, no more fish. Fish cannot live in a fish bowl with boiling water. Or you put acid in it, it's a different chemical parameters. That's what we're doing. We're basically changing the chemical parameters of the Earth. All the carbon dioxide will evaporate from the oceans because it gets too hot. The oceans will become acidic because there's more carbon dioxide overall. But other gases will emerge as well. Methane, hydrogen sulfide, all that stuff will all come out of the oceans and will all devastate everything else. And then it will be very dry, and stormy and windy, and there will be lots of rain. And that happened before, at the end of the Permian era, and afterwards there was 4 million years of just the most obnoxious algae, and basically an atmosphere after the end of Permian extinction, which killed almost everything that was alive. You had an atmosphere which, if you breathe it, you die instantly. Poisonous atmosphere, because the oxygen was gone, just like it's going right now. If you calculate it, you have 4,000 years of oxygen left at the current rate. So you can. But this is just to illustrate the carbon credit mechanism, which says that we have a resource and we project its value which is, let's say, the wealth we can create by using it. And we make sure that people are so mesmerized by that money instead of the carbon, that they will work for money and do anything for money. And then, of course, we can always promise to use it. So basically we can say, well, so even with failed harvests and massive famine and a dying Africa, because you take away half of the water from rain from Africa, and a lot of people will die. You can say, well, we have the reserves, we have this stuff here, and you can burn it one day when you get it out, because you have to get it out using the same stuff, and then you'll have your wealth. And maybe that's that promise that is being made, and that's where the error is the biggest error is made. It's like based on that promise and the fact that the carbon credit economy makes it that you capture the whole economy with one resource, carbon, and people are not looking at the carbon side but at the credit side. So they see a whole ocean of possibility in financial assets and money and derivatives and stuff like that. Makes it that there's just such a fundamental misdirection that you really have to get to the core and basically close the mines, close the wells, do everything you can in order to make sure that the resource that you try to buy with your money isn't there. And then you suddenly see, hey, hyperinflation. My money is worthless. It is worthless, but it's no longer killing me. So that's a benefit then. And there's solar power, which is then, let's say, relatively extremely cheap, because you buy a solar panel once and after 5 years or 10 years it's paid off, and then for 50 years it will simply continue on being a solar panel. And you have to maintain it a little bit. You can replace all income of every person in the world with renewable energy income, because the energy generates the credit and makes the machines work and makes the stuff come about, and everybody can have a job then and earn an income. Of course, there's human participation in it, but it's not. It will be eventually a little bit like it is today, because now a lot of people have jobs that are useless, that are simply mediating the use and utilization of carbon. In the future people will have similar jobs if they are alive, of course, if there is an ecology to sustain us, and we will simply be facilitating the utilization of renewable energy. And of course that's a lot less cumbersome. Because what's the difference between finding a mine, digging it up with heavy machinery, processing it like tar sands, transporting it through logistical processes, through distribution centers, having a matching financial system going the other way, with all kinds of abuses. You read all about sexual abuse, inducing prostitution, all that stuff. That whole logistic change won't be there because it's renewable. It will come from near where you live. It will be land related, land based. Another story which I think is very inspiring is about the Indian guy, I believe his name is Malai, who took 30 years to build a 500 hectare or 1300 acre or 1.3 thousand acre, I'm sorry, I don't know what it really is, the acreage, but a huge forest all by himself, one guy in a desert area. And that's interesting. I knew it was possible, and I've seen it done in several occasions, but it shows you how you can simply take the situation of nature and help it a little bit, and then it will create let's say the forest will maintain the moisture will maintain the forest, and so you don't have to irrigate, and you will get different weather patterns, you get wild animals, you get a wild variety of elephants and all that stuff that he got in his own forest that he created himself. And that's important because eventually, if you're not going to be able to stop climate change, and highly unlikely because it is a process of accumulating. It's like you have a heater under a blanket, and the blanket is too thick. Just a moment. Under a blanket, and the blanket is too thick, so the heater cannot lose its heat fast enough. So it heats up under the blanket, and it keeps heating until it's a fire. That's what the atmospheric blanket effect is. The greenhouse effect is. It's a blanket. It suffocates, and it accumulates heat, and it increases and increases. And of course, at a certain point, it radiates equally. But anyway, if that happens, you want to have enormous amounts of life on Earth, because then it can evolve. Because then there's variety from which you can get species that can deal with the changing weather patterns. It's going extremely fast for evolutionary, let's say, normal events, because that Permian extinction took place over the course of 700,000 years. And so, way too fast. So it's not likely that there's going to be much life left if it follows through the same pattern. But if you want to make the Earth resilient, then you have to green it up in places where you might not expect that it's even possible. And it's nice to see, I think, that the driest desert can become a jungle once you put the right system in there. Anyway. Long video, thanks for listening, and I hope you check out my other website, GreenCheck, because I'm working on some experimental new energy technologies, and I could use some funding. So thanks for listening.